Hi, everybody. Welcome to Marty Time TV. I am Marty Caswell. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some fair warning right now. I am having one of those days. I am over caffeinated. I've had about 4 cups of coffee. I've burnt three pieces of toast. I haven't really eaten breakfast. There's a lot going on. I have projects to get to, but I am happy to be here with you guys. It's always a lot of fun when the Padres are winning, and right now they're winning. They're playing inspirational baseball. Let me try and slow down. I've had too much coffee. I want to start off by saying that the show is brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. It's a great day for a Padres off day before they go to Houston tomorrow, then end their short road trip in Detroit. I am reminded of a conversation I had with AJ Cassavell on last Tuesday. He joins us every Tuesday, as he will next week, from Detroit, saying, do the Padres is the talent of Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado enough to overcome the deficits they have in the middle and the bottom of the order when you have players like, listen, Jason Hayward, he is what he is at this point. Yuli Gurriel fitting in there. The catching situation, it's a bonus if you get any offense there, but are Machado and Tatis good enough to keep the Padres there with the best record in baseball until they get Jackson Merrill back? Based on the small sample size, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And speaking of Jackson Merrill, let me show you some footage yesterday from Petco Park. Hang on one second. Here we go. Okay, is it playing? There it goes. Okay. So yesterday the Padres got some very good news on Jackson Merrill, and not very good news. He and Brandon Lockridge were out there doing what Mike Schilt calls dribbling. I am unfamiliar with what dribbling is, but he is making some progress back. He stayed behind in San Diego with Lockridge to continue rehabbing rather than travel with his team to Houston. So we'll see. I'll leave that footage up there so you guys can kind of see what's happening, the progress he was making with the trainers. Joe Musgrove was also out there as well, which you can see working out, although he is not likely going to pitch this season, but we'll see. All right. We are going to have John Conniff from Mad Friars joining the show. Full disclosure, I recorded this last week with John Conniff to talk about the Padres prospects. It has been a crazy news cycle because since then, right, you had the injury to Jackson Merrill, and then you had Brandon Lockridge, who was there to replace him in center field. And part of the point of the conversation wasn't just to talk about who is the prospect to pay attention to throughout the organization, the progress of DeVry and Ethan Salas, but also who was best suited to go ahead and who could the Padres call up, right? Who could they call up while they wait for Merrill? Now, while they wait for Lockridge, Connor Joe's already here, hasn't recorded a hit yet, but I wanted to find out who was most suited to helping the Padres right now. So anyways, there you go. There's Jackson Merrill. There's Brendan Lockridge. Hopefully we'll get a better update for those guys next week when the Padres return home from Petco Park. Now, before we get to John Conniff, I want to go ahead and hear a little bit from Mike Schilt last night on the latest member of the Padres grit squad, and that would be Tyler Wade, who reached base 4 times yesterday, 2 for 2, 2 walks, scored 2 runs. He was a guy that talked about why staying with San Diego, not opting out was a no-brainer after he did not make this roster. He knew his value on the field inside that clubhouse. He is such a popular player. And yesterday's result, he didn't say it validated, but it reinforced why he made the right decision to play with San Diego, because he knew they would need him. All right, guys, give me a second. Let's go ahead and hear from Mike Schilt from yesterday talking about Tyler Wade. And this is good stuff, too, on Tatis and Machado. The game was Saturday when Fernando Tatis led off the game with a home run and then ended the game with a game-saving catch against the Cubs. Yesterday, he had a bases loaded walk in the 8th inning, gave the Padres an extra insurance run, which they didn't need, but you can never have too much insurance, right? Especially when you're playing a team like the Cubs. And Manny Machado spoke about how he was vintage Tatis. This is the Tatis they saw as a 19-year-old, right? Win with his bat, win with his glove. Yesterday, it was about winning with the walk, and he was talking about maturity at the plate and being able to contribute more. But let's go ahead and hear from Mike Schilt from yesterday afternoon on the contributions of Tyler Wade, the gold standard defense of Manny Machado, and also what Fernando Tatis is adding to the Padres.
The team, listen, it's never going to be a straight line, so we'd like it to be a straight line. Everybody's playing, everybody's fresh. 162 games, it's how you handle the deviations. And, we've had some guys go down. It happens. We're supporting the heck out of them. But then guys like Wadey, who was a big part of our club last year, it helped us win games. We know what we're getting. We know he can come up. And on display today, 4 outstanding at bats, 2 runs scored. Makes a nice play to lead off the 9th inning. He's a great energy guy. He's just he's an important part of the club.
On the defensive side, can you maybe break down for us 2 plays in chronological order? First, the tag out in the 6th inning. Great job by Xander to let that ball go deep. It's easy to say that. Sometimes not as easy to do. And then the other one, Manny's play. Playing on the shift, having to charge on that bunt, the bare hand. Can you break those down, how difficult those plays might be?
Yeah, they're both plays that, a couple of things are in play with the plays. First of all, we did a good job of holding and keeping Hap close as far as the pitching responsibility. Diaz throws a laser. And then something that we've addressed that Bogey and the middle infielders taken very seriously is their tags. There's a lot of safes and there's a lot of outs. And quality tags, flips it on the out equation. He did it the other, couple series ago. Boom, right there, catches it right there. Same thing today, lets the ball travel. Ball's faster than your hand, believe it or not, and then boom, just puts it right on him. It was A+ tag, A+ throw, A+ control in the running game. That's when we talk about win on the margins, that's what we work on, that's what we do. And then Manny's play, he's got such baseball savvy. It's a 2-run game. Suarez isn't an easy at bat. Bush has been swinging the bat, but showed bunt early. So he's back, but he's also sniffing out and, reading what's about to take place if it happened, and it happened, and he made a Manny-esque play, which is a gold standard play.
Mike, how pleased are you with the approach today? You guys have taken your walks when they've come, but pretty big part of some victories lately.
Extremely pleased. Extremely pleased. We do a lot of things well that reflect being a top offense in our game. But I will say the thing that can be underrated, but not for me, is the walks. And we don't have a walk first approach. We have a, hit on a good pitch approach, hit pitches we can handle approach with the right, based on the situation. So, we talk about the Petco Park hitting, but part of Petco Park hitting is also getting the quality, getting a pitch to handle. And so I'm really pleased with the entire lineup. 2 guys that stand out the most for me, or who do you think they are?
Diaz and Wadey.
They were great today, but I'm going to go with Toddy and Manny. Fernando Tatis, if you look at him and what he's doing and managing the strike zone, he is accepting the walks that they're going to give him because he's a dangerous human being, as is Manny. And he's taking his walks, which means he's getting more pitches to hit, which means he's doing more damage. Today was very indicative of a couple very, very professional at-bats from Toddy. Looks to go the other way, runner scoring position, because he can run, puts pressure on the defense, boom, knock, RBI. And then later on, bases loaded, doesn't give in, takes a couple borderline pitches, fights off a couple with 2 strikes that are close, and then spits on a couple and takes his walk and gets his RBI. So very professional, and then the damage is going to come even more so like it's coming, like it has been. And then Manny's taking tremendous at-bats as well. Been very disciplined in the zone. And when we do that, with our talent, you're seeing what we're seeing.
So that was Mike Schilt in yesterday's post game. I know that was long. That was a longer press conference from Mike Schilt. He had a lot of people to go ahead and shout out. Manny Machado, his gold standard defense. Fernando Tatis Jr., of course, Tyler Wade. Spent some time talking about Wandy Peralta being at a different level this year in the Padres bullpen. But to answer my question to AJ Caswell on Tuesday and how I started today's show, yes, right now, when Manny Machado was playing at this level and he's healthy, this is a different player than what we saw last year when he got off that slow start. And when Fernando Tatis Jr., fully healthy, head in the right place, as he mentioned in spring training, man, those two are enough to go ahead and carry this team until Jackson Merrill come back. And speaking, since we're talking about Mike Schilt, he made an Anchorman reference yesterday saying that they will be yogging. I have never finished watching Anchorman, so that reference was lost on me. But that's very, very good news on Jackson Merrill and on Brandon Lockridge. Wouldn't surprise me though if Lockridge returns to the Padres sooner rather than Merrill. Okay, as I promised you, I caught up with John Conniff, Mad Friars last week to go ahead and just to do an evaluation of the Padres minor league system. Of course, this was coming fresh off the injuries to Jake Cronenworth, to Jackson Merrill, and to Brandon Lockridge to find out which players were best suited to come up and make an early impact. Hopefully, good news for the Padres, you don't need to depend on these players because you are being carried by Machado and Tatis. But I'm going to go ahead and bring you that conversation right now. This is John Conniff of Mad Friars. And yes, you should subscribe to them. Before I get to John Conniff, don't forget the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Here's John Conniff. I'm not talking Connor Joe. Connor Joe, we know what he is. Mm-hmm. I'm talking a prospect. Who is most ready for the bigs at this point?
You know, you always want, when you ask a question like that, which is a good question, I always want to pick someone that no one knows about and people go, ooh, wow, that's mm-hmm. so clever. Mm-hmm. I can't. You know, the guy coming up is Oscar Gonzalez. He was crushing the ball. He's a player of the week. He's 6'5", 240. He has some experience. And when we get into El Paso, that's a whole roster which is just built for having guys that come up if someone gets injured, they mm-hmm. can fill in 5 games, then go back down. But yeah, that's the guy I would look at. We can talk a little bit about Tirso Ornelas, who lets me practice Spanish with him for years. And so
really?
Good. Yeah. Well, the best story I have, I'll say this real quick. And I've told this a few times before, but unless everyone's like my wife and looks at every word I say as the word of God, I'm sure someone will kind of forget it, was Fernando Reyes. I used to talk to a lot. And he wouldn't do it. He said he didn't want to do an interview. His English wasn't good enough. And when he got to San Antonio, mm-hmm. he said he would do it. Then he told me, he goes, I'll do it, but I've heard you speak Spanish. So we're going to do it in Spanish in the dugout. And so I went back to the hotel. I wrote the Spanish, got the thing down, and I interviewed him. And I was real happy. Then I went back to San Antonio, and Fred Mills said, you know, I read your interview, and it was very, very good.
Really?
My favorite part of it was all there's in translation are mine, because next year when I'm in El Paso and I have 30 home runs at the break and the Padres are screwing me by not calling me up, and I tell you that, and they come to me and they say, did you tell Conniff that? And they'll say, oh, Conniff, his Spanish not so good.
That's awesome. I love Fernando. What a
he was awesome. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get to the prospects. Should we start with Cash Mayfield? I mean, he was what a debut for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy the Padres picked number 1. He's about a year older than most high school guys. Mm-hmm. Something like in Oklahoma and Texas they do where they hold kids back. Left-hander, his velo wasn't quite up to where, you know, it's going to be, but the Padres were really happy. Cash was happy. David J. and Clark Fernhold, one of our new writers, was out there. They interviewed him afterward. He struck out the side, first 3 pitches, first 3 batters, struck out 2 of the 3 in next, gave up 1 walk. 6'4", lefty, throws a fastball, changeup, and slider right now. Really good command of it. But people need to just kind of calm down about that. He just threw 3 innings. He's not going to be in Fort Wayne next week and San Antonio by the break, and then San Diego to start with. It's a great start by him. And the other guy we're going to talk about, I assume, is Sasquatch.
Yes, on my list.
I got it, man. You're prepared, Marty. You're ready to go.
Sasquatch. Like 6'8", correct? Sasquatch.
Correct.
Did he give himself that nickname, or was that given to him? Which is
someone else gave it to him. And the funny thing is, one of our number editor of Mad Friars, David J, was at the Padres, where they introduced the new draft picks, and he saw it was next to Jeff Sanders. They go, who's that older guy who must be about 6'6"? And David goes, I think I got a clue whose dad that is. And then comes, and he's a very good athlete. I mean, they were really impressed by him. 6'8". They really worked on his command of his fastball, cleaning up his mechanics, curve. He's trying to develop a slider. But we all know who the more interesting person is. So we want to talk about like Elsinore, who's the pitcher, don't we, Marty?
Yes. Take it away. Take it away.
Okay. Well, I went out there last, and the guy the Padres had signed was a guy called Brian Balzer, whose mother is Japanese, whose father is a U.S. citizen. You can read it on our site. It's behind the paywall. But of course, if I'm going on Marty Caswell's podcast, there's no way I'm not going to talk about this, the full thing. So this is a freebie for you guys, her listeners from us. He's signed with the Padres for only $10,000 the minimum they could sign him because they don't have any money left. That was an Ethan Salas international draft class. So when I was interviewing him, and you would get a kick out of this, I watch him pitch, and he goes through this whole routine for a bullpen, pantomiming what he's going to do. Then he throws the bullpen. Perfect bullpen, great mechanics. And then I talked to him, and he's about 19 years old. He goes, yes, I have time to talk to you. We can talk at either 10:30 or 10:45.
Wow.
Yeah, whichever one you want. We will talk at table 3. I go, oh, okay. And so, it comes about 10:42. He's hasn't shown up. And, you've done this a number of times. Think, oh, he probably had something come up. He couldn't make it. Comes out 10:45, table number 3, no phone, sitting there, talks. And now he left the U.S. when he was 8 years old. He went to elementary school, middle school, and high school in Japan. He had to kind of relearn English. And the part that's really interesting for Padre fans is with you, Darvish, I think, is when David and Clark were out there first, Darvish was talking to him, and it wasn't the type of thing where he's going, hi, I'm you, Darvish. When you come to San Diego, come by and see me. David said Darvish was watching his bullpens. They were talking about it afterward. And, you talked to Brian afterward. He said Darvish gives him his home number, talks to him all the time. He gives him gear. He makes sure he understands what the mental side of the game is. It was just, impressive because like you and I talked last year when, you made a start in Fort Wayne, and they still rave about that. When he came out there, he bought 2 full meals for both teams and the players. He did all the local media that they wanted him to do. Was very friendly. Finished his 3-inning stint, stayed in the dugout for the whole game. Thanked all the players. He keeps all this
very gracious.
Yeah, he keeps all this very quiet, and I hope I'm not violating any confidences. But the city of San Diego is very lucky to have someone like you, Darvish. And
I would completely agree. Very gracious. I wish we could see more of that personality, but that's how he is. He keeps him to himself. Very, very humble. So it's awesome that he is taking Brian Balzer under his wing and showing him the ropes.
One quick thing on Balzer though is let's get to this. Balzer at 19 is sitting between 94 and 96 on the mound. He has a killer changeup. He throws a 2-seamer, which is more like a sinker that's coming in. The changeup comes into right-hand batters. He's got a very good sweeper. And the thing, too, which was fascinating about him is this is a guy who was playing in the Japanese high school ranks that was pretty much an outfielder and first baseman, threw a little bit of pitching. And as much as Preller and those guys will talk about their scouting, you got to think about this as they got scouts scouting the Japanese high school league, looking for guys who really aren't getting that much attention, but might be hidden gems. That's impressive. That is pretty good.
That's I love it. Anything else you want to add on Balzer before we move on to? I love this.
No, keep an eye on him. He had a good start. He pitched well in his first outing. Had a little bit of rough first inning, then struck out 6. He's going to be someone to watch. But
did Jim Kelly say best pitching prospect in the Padres system right now?
Has one of the best arms in the Padres system.
Best arms, wow.
But you have with Balzer, he's coming off Tommy John. So to use one of the catchphrases that you were known for at your old station, when people start saying, okay, well, he's going to do this, and then he'll be in Fort Wayne, and we can't rush him. No. His goal is to stay healthy, make his starts, and pitch. Leave him alone. He'll be fine. We can talk about him more next year, but he is someone to watch.
Okay, I'm excited. I hope I get a chance to. I say this every single year. Darren and I would claim this every single year. I've got to get up to Lake Elsinore. This is going to be the year. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make sure that I get up there.
There can't be a better prospect for Marty Caswell to talk to.
No, I am all over it. Let's go.
Yes.
I'll impress him with my Duolingo.
Oh, you should. I told him, I joked
loser.
him, I'm not going to speak Japanese to you in the next interview. He laughed. He's learning Spanish too.
Of course he is.
He's a bright kid. He looks like he's about 14 years old, of course. So.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Who else would you like to hit while we're in Elsinore?
Elsinore right now, the offense is struggling a little bit because they got a couple guys who aren't offensive players that aren't there yet.
Okay.
Cobb Hightower from the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Cale Fountain, who they gave $1.7 million from Nebraska, is about a 6'6" or 6'5" third baseman. Huge. Oh, one other quick thing on I go back to Balzer. I'm sorry, my mind goes there. Is when I talked to him, he's listed at 6 feet, 185. And I stood next to him. I'm nearly 6'3". I said, "There's no way you're only 6 feet. You have to be 6'2". He goes, "Oh, well, maybe I've grown." That's always good.
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple of those guys are going to be some to watch. Watch Cobb Hightower, watch Cale Fountain. It's going to be a very young squad. Probably where San Diego fans are lucky, this might be the best team for prospects to see. So I would definitely take a trip up to 15, go take a look at them.
Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to move up a league level. Who's your profile? Who's the hot name to pay attention to?
Well, we're going to go to Fort Wayne. We'll go to Leo DeVries, the shortstop. Everybody knows about him.
Yes, they
Switch
do.
hitter. He's put on some weight. He's about 6'2". I kind of like how the Padres handled DeVries. They didn't kind of move him up as quickly. Part of it because he got injured. He can make all the plays at shortstop, has some power. Another guy who is going to experience the cold of Northeast Indiana, being from the Dominican, which will be a little bit of a shock. There's a nice pitcher up there, Isaiah Lowe, who pitched real well at Elsinore last year. Kid from North Carolina. They bought out of his Wake Forest commitment. And there's a lot of more college players up there, but those are the two main guys I would really stick with. Okay.
DeVries. I know in spring training, like Padre fans have heard about DeVries, and of course Ethan Salas. And the conversation, who is more likely to come up first to help the Padres? Everything I heard, it would be DeVries.
I think you're right.
Ahead of where Salas is right now. And the Padres, just so we're sure, the Padres see him as a true shortstop because they've had a ton of original shortstops come through. I know last season, Jackson Merrill said that he knew that he was going to be moved at some point. Now, he thought that CJ Abrams was going to be the Padres shortstop of the future. He had already planned on moving to center field, but without question, this kid, he is the future at shortstop, correct?
I believe so. I think when you talked to Jackson before, I think he was kind of being nice. Jackson in the minor leagues didn't think he was going to be moving off shortstop. So, I mean, I think I said this with Darren and John, like my big hot take, I think is maybe before you play a game in center field, the first one shouldn't be at the major league level. It might be kind of helpful to do it at the minor leagues. We would ask them about this all the time, and they would kind of tell us to go back and play on our blog. So, I don't know.
Listen, you nerd, get back to your blogs.
Yes, exactly. So, but he is such a good athlete. The thing, too, about Merrill is Merrill grew. Merrill's about 6'4". When he was drafted, he was around 6'1". When he was a sophomore in high school, he was 5'7". So this is a guy who was going to go to West Point, then Kentucky. Then he moved up in the draft to the first round. No one comes up to Severna Park, Maryland to watch him play. Like Chris Kemp was telling me, they were trying to evaluate him in Maryland, watching a guy throw 70 miles an hour at him and think, okay, is this guy we're going to spend a first-round pick on? So that was another credit where the Padres did really well in the draft.
All right, good deal. All right, so DeVries, someone to get excited about, shortstop of the future.
I think this is why people...
They're not going to throw him in left field like they did with Iglesias yesterday.
No, I mean, I think this is why people hate prospect guys on the radio and here is, I think he has all this stuff. He could be the shortstop of the future. I think you're absolutely right. But there's a lot of steps in between. And I mean, it's really flattering to be asked. But it's like when some of the stuff I was reading going, okay, well, Ethan Salas, he's going to be in the major leagues in 2027. He'll be hitting here. You go, guys, there's a lot of steps in between. And we're going to get to Salas in a minute when we go to San Antonio. But there's a lot of things we like about DeVries, but there's a reason there's different levels in the minors.
Mhm.
You know, because when I was on the radio show with you, you would hear me rave about Adrian Morejon.
Yes.
And
Took a while.
he was one of the best pitchers I saw in the minors. But if I talk to someone like you and you say what's good, or a Padre fan, that you go, okay, he's the number 3 starter. He's going to make 25 starts and throw 180 innings. Well, he hasn't shown that yet. And then I can sit there and come back and go, well, Marty, you're scouting the stat line. No, I'm looking at a number which tells me he's going to be good. That's a legitimate question. So on that, we can hop up to San Antonio.
Okay.
And we can go to Ethan Salas if you're okay.
Let's go to Ethan Salas. And by the way, before we go there, you know, because of course he was with the Major League camp, and so he had his lockers. I forgot who his lockers were by. So he, you know, he got a lot of media asking questions. You know, the expectations and the Padres need a catcher. Do you think he can come up this year? So I asked him, you know, what he took away from his struggles that he had last season, and this is what he had to say.
Definitely just dealing with adversity for the first time. Really never experienced it. Just really didn't know where to go from there. But I thought it was a big learning curve, and really it's gonna benefit my career. Definitely the
Sorry, I wanted to play that twice. So that was him talking. Had never really struggled before, right? So he thought he learned from it. So where did he struggle the most in his tour around the minor leagues?
Well, first of all, let's go back. Salas he got called up in June in 2023. He hit about 190, had a high on base. Then in July, he had the huge numbers. We got everyone excited. Then in August, that's where I came on with you guys, and I said, I think rushing him to Fort Wayne, San Antonio wasn't a great idea. And he hit about 190 there. In Fort Wayne, he struggled for 4 out of the 5 months. His best month, he had about 256. All right. And it wasn't on base or slugging. He didn't struggle defensively. There's no one that doubts he can catch at the AA level. The big question is, you can spin it any way you want. 206 is 206. Okay. And not many guys are going to be promoted from high A to AA. So if you're watching Salas, like right now, he's 1 for 12. It's a very early in the season. You know, it's going to take a while for him to hit. And the one thing that I thought got away from him a little bit last year compared to when I was raving about him in Lake Elsinore was he had a very good understanding in Elsinore of what he wanted to do. Go gap to gap, singles, and all that. I thought he was trying to hit for too much power, seemed a little anxious. And he kind of thought, well, I got to hit in Fort Wayne real quick, so I'll be in San Antonio by the break. And I think that's the wrong approach. So I think he's going to be in San Antonio definitely for the full year. And I think if he can hit, I mean, that's going to be a really big question because put it this way, with DeVries in Fort Wayne, if he struggles, there's nothing he was going to learn in Lake Elsinore. With Ethan, I mean, a bunch of us on Mad Friars, there's 5 of us, about all of us thought he should have started in Fort Wayne for the first 3 months. Wow. Padres, we asked them that point blank directly. You can read in the season preview, which is free for everybody. They gave the right answer, and, you know, I hope they're right. He's a very nice kid, works really hard. He's worked on his body. He's really made a lot of progress just working with pitchers and calling games. But that's a big ask. That is the biggest jump in the minors from high A to AA, and you know that. We've talked about that a number of years.
Seems like a lot of spotlight, if you will, and pressure.
Yes.
Like he's the name that every Padres fan has known since he was 16 years old, which is rather crazy.
He is, and I mean the people that you're around because you cover the major league team is, I think they're just a little too casual in saying, yeah, I mean, well, we can't really sign a catcher because in 26 and 27, Ethan's going to be here. Right. I mean, you know, I don't know. Right. Let's play it out.
Like Kyle Higashioka. Like you can't pay him because you know what, he's going to be here by the summer. It can happen. And I know that Preller and Schilt were both asked about that in spring training. So what you're saying right now is hold your horses.
Yes.
It's talent's there, but it's going to take a little bit longer than perhaps people had thought or had wanted. And I saw Austin Hedges the very first homestand when he came in with the Guardians. Is he? Yeah. And there's a lot of hype around him when he was with the Padres in the minor league system. Are we thinking that he might be almost that situation, the elite defensively, but the bat might be a question? Which is kind of funny because I thought that the bat was the least of their concerns initially.
Well, you know, it's funny. You asked the same question. John Gennaro said, and I was on his show earlier today, I told my wife I was coming on your show 2 podcasts a day, and I said maybe people both might listen to both of them. And her line was, "Why?" I go, "Okay, well anyhow,
John. I mean, not John. Yeah, John. Today's tomorrow. So just so you know,
today's tomorrow. Okay, a day or." But I screwed that up. But anyhow, I saw Austin Hedges play all throughout the minors. Wrote 2 articles on him for Baseball America. I saw him in Fort Wayne when he was 19. Austin at 19 hit in the cold of Fort Wayne 275 with power. So the thing where you can mess up is I went on, I think it was with you in 2015 or 16. And I said, well, I've seen Austin Hedges play in El Paso. He hit a home run to right field. He's using the whole field. Guys, he's ready. His hitting struggles are over. Yeah. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer this question.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'm to blame. That is true. I think to answer your question, I think Ethan has more hitting talent, particularly in his eye on the strike zone. And when he decides he doesn't want to try to yank everything and go gap to gap, he's fine. I think if Austin had tried to do that a little bit more, he'd be better. But, Hedges has had an 11-year career.
He's had a hell of a career. It's amazing. It's a ring.
He's going to he's made like over $35 million. He has 10 years in the major leagues. That's $162K a year. Yeah, that's absolutely great for him. People could make fun of me all they wanted to. If I was looking at that, I'd be laughing all the way to the bank. So good. Yeah, good for Austin. He was always a nice guy to chat with. I always enjoyed chatting with him.
He's a success. I completely agree. And he's the guy that got Darren Smith hooked on Game of Thrones. So there you go. I told him
I remember that.
That's a huge accolade. Okay. Thanks for your time. John, you and I could talk forever on this. There's so much detail. Where do you want to go next? Who do you want to spotlight? With the time that we have left, we have to get to Sasquatch. So who else do you want to go ahead and spotlight?
We talked about Sasquatch. He was in Lake Elsinore. He's a 6'8" lefty. The only other guy, there's a couple pitchers, Jagger Haynes, Victor Lizarraga on San Antonio to keep an eye on. And since we're kind of up against it on the clock a little bit, we can go to El Paso. We can do this really quick. Please. El Paso pretty much is kind of like the taxi squad of the Padres. You got Tyler Wade there. You got Connor Joe. You got Oscar Gonzalez. You got guys who, what we just saw today that you opened up with, if someone gets hurt, they can pull them up. They got some major league experience.
Eggy Rosario. I was a little bit surprised that he returned to the organization. I know that Preller, that was a tough one for Preller, and then he was hoping that he could trade him. But are you surprised that he stayed with the Padres?
I was really surprised. Eggy's like the biggest little guy you ever seen in your life.
Yes.
He's about 5'9", 210. And he's pretty young. The other guy to keep an eye on is Tirso Ornelas. And a pitcher to keep an eye on is Ryan Berger, who is we have raved about for years, him and Stephen Kolek. So that was a quick 2 minutes, yes.
Stephen Kolek. Okay, so should Kyle Hart struggle again in his next start, and he could be a guy the Padres might see better suited for mid relief, for some long relief. Who's the next guy to come up? You think it's Kolek? Is he ready?
Kolek could probably be the closest guy because he has major league experience. I think
Waldron has the oblique injury still. Okay,
right, but I think if we get past June and Berger's arm angle is where it's supposed to be, where he has a a fastball that rises and moves. I'm not going to go with the IBBF or whatever the hell that is.
Okay.
But it moves up. Berger has, I think, the best long run talent. He's a guy I would look at.
Okay. Ryan Berger. Okay.
All right.
Okay. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, thanks for having me. I'd love to come back on again and let me know.
I would appreciate it. John, one more thing on Ornelas. Like, what do you see in him? I know that, it's interesting that I know Padres fans weren't happy with some of the roster decisions the Padres made, including Gurriel, Jason Hayward, whatnot. But what do you like about Ornelas?
I've always liked Tirso's really tried to get past where he hits a lot of balls on the ground. He had a really bad nickname in San Antonio of Mexican Hosmer, which huge person. Okay, but he needs to get the ball in there more, especially in a park like El Paso where the ball flies.
That's going to.
We also have a very good gift story.
To me?
I did. It's going to stick in your mind now forever. Yeah,
forever. Every time I look at him, Mexican Hosmer, every ground ball, Hosmer.
Oh wow! Thank you very much for having me on, Marty. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, John. Shout out to your wife, and thank you for all the extra smalls and the great hats. I have a collection. I am well dressed. I wear it often, so I appreciate you, John. For all all you listeners out there and those of you kind enough to watch, you should subscribe to Mad Friars. You should check out their content. They have excellent writers, a great staff. They do terrific work. And of course, they have the insight on your favorite Padre. Thanks, John.
Thank you so much. Take care, Marty.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, so that was John Conniff, Mad Friars from last week, and he nailed a couple of those topics. Of course, now we recorded this last week, as you can tell, and he mentioned, who was calling me? Stop calling me. Connor, Joe, and Tyler Wade are up, so we'll see what happens with the Mexican Hosmer should the Padres ever need that player, and I'm never going to forget it. Okay, a couple of housekeeping things to go ahead and get to. Let me show some more of the Jackson Merrill highlights as well. A couple of things. Ran into Jed Hoyer yesterday, the former Padres GM. Now he's the the president of baseball ops with the Cubs. And of course, we were having a good conversation about how much things have changed. Not just the fact that the Padres are selling out every single game. They've sold out 11 of their first 13 games, which is remarkable. It's one thing to do it when you have a giveaway, which they did on Monday when they had a record, the third largest crowd in Petco Park history. 47,000 people were there. But you're talking a Wednesday day game, no giveaway, and they sell out again. Things have really, really changed. The culture has changed. The star power has changed. As Jed mentioned, when he was here with the Padres his first year, it was the ownership of Jeff Murad who bought the Padres on a payment plan, and he famously told Jed that the payroll was going to start with a 4, but actually it was a 3. And now, as Hoyer pointed out, now the Padres have like 3 $30 million players. So a lot has changed since Jed Hoyer was the Padres GM. I know we all love power rankings, right? And the Padres right now, if you looked at ESPN, number 1 in the power rankings. Those Dodgers have dropped based on some of their struggles, man. I wish those division games were a lot sooner right now, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. Oh, one thing I didn't mention when I was talking to John Conniff, I actually had it to start our interview. We're both friends on Duolingo. I'm trying to brush up on Japanese. He's learning everything else as well. So we were talking about Duolingo when we were talking about the Padres prospects. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you for putting up with me and my Wi-Fi issues and my over-caffeination. I moved my setup, right, from my floor, my couch to the kitchen. I'm using an Ethernet cord. I'm not sure if it made it better or worse, but I appreciate you guys watching. Once again, we are brought to you by the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. If you missed any of the conversation yesterday, Padres postgame with Mike Schilt, with Nick Pavetta, who was very, very interesting, talking about the Padres bullpen and also what he's learned from his fellow starters. Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, guys who aren't even active right now, and of course Dylan Cease and Michael King. You can find that conversation here on Marty Time TV. There's more from Fernando Tatis about his growing maturity, taking those walks. More from Manny Machado. There's Tyler Wade talking about not vindication, but knowing that this moment was going to come, that he is valuable for the Padres. And of course, you can find the footage of Jackson Merrill. That's what we call. What is he doing? Mike Schilt called that dribbling, which I honestly was not familiar with, but he did stay behind as Schilt. He and Lockwood stayed behind to go ahead and work on their yogging an anchorman reference that's lost on me. All right, guys, that'll do it for today. We'll catch up with you tomorrow when the Padres are in Houston. Wow, the NFL draft is 1 week from today. I need to do something like that. I love the draft. All right, guys, have a great day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. It's time for my bacon burrito.